All right, this is going to be one of the fastest weather updates I've done in quite some time, just because I'm pressed for a little bit of time. So let's get to it. We're talking about the possibility of more flooding across Texas, unfortunately. But if you look, the highest risk today across parts of the Northeast, all the way up into New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Northern Virginia. Moderate risk of some excessive rainfall here. The Weather Prediction Center talking about that there could be some pretty decent warm depth to the atmosphere here, and that just means some really efficient rainmakers, and that could lead to some flooding. Here we are. We'll start with the jet stream. I want to show you this because it's way to the north. We talked some about that yesterday, but there is a bit of a dip here. That's going to impact parts of the northern plains, possibly the upper Midwest with some severe weather, and we're also looking at the possibility of some tropical weather, all right? So you got to watch here along the Gulf Coast states as we head through the next couple of days. The National Hurricane Center is still watching this area. Today, they bumped this up to about a 30% chance of seeing some kind of development here. Clearly, something that needs to be watched over the coming days, in addition to the flooding. The ensemble guidance might look a little bit weaker than it was yesterday, but still, there is something showing up here, at least that weak wave moving east. So the data still says, pay attention to this time period. Here's what we're looking like with severe weather today. Not nearly as active as what we saw yesterday, but you saw the flood risk. It doesn't mean we're completely in the clear, but there could be some strong damaging winds, some hail. Look at this up and down the eastern seaboard, the I-95 corridor, maybe escaping I-95 here in eastern North Carolina and South Carolina, but you get the idea. Back into the Piedmont, upstate of South Carolina, down into southeast Georgia and a lot of Florida, and then there's the severe weather risk across the northern plains. And look at this, some thunderstorms across Arizona as we pick up the monsoon flow. Tornado risk today, very low, if any. This is the east. This is across the central plains. So that is, I guess, a silver lining to the weather for today. Tomorrow, that changes, though. We do see a higher risk of stronger storms increasing across parts of Nebraska, also parts of South Dakota. Tornado outlook day 2, just a little bit higher. That's an area that needs to be watched. Today's storms could get pretty impressive, too, across parts of Nebraska. I'm going to let you watch this. Today, fairly quiet, but the possibility of something developing across western Nebraska, South Dakota, heading into tomorrow looks really impressive, right? So we were watching that area. There could be a few storms today, but tomorrow looks pretty wild. So it's a time to be weather aware. A wider look, too. We'll head out into Texas, and then we'll look at everybody else. More rain this morning, unfortunately. The same thing again. And I think the problem here will be, as long as we have this really humid air mass in place with all of the moisture around, more heavy downpours possible across Texas today. Here's a wider look. Let's put this out. This is the 3K NAM, giving you an idea of how these two pieces of, complexes of showers are going to evolve through the day today. They will start to settle down some. And then look, overall, I would say, compared to what we've seen recently, maybe a little bit quieter. Here comes that trough swinging into the northern plains with some storms across Montana today. Also, maybe moving across the UP of Michigan. I think you got to watch this piece of energy as it kicks through. And then as we head into tomorrow, there's that cluster we were showing you there on the across parts of South Dakota and Nebraska. These could be some much bigger storms for Tuesday, especially into the afternoon and evening. If you get some kind of complex developing here, look how that bows out. At least some of the models are picking up on that. That could be a pretty strong complex that weakens as it heads towards northern Missouri and Iowa, heading into the overnight. And then on Wednesday, this system starts to move toward Wisconsin. More to come on that. Here's a look at your temperatures today. Another hot one across the central U.S. all the way into the south. The only relief would be the showers and the clouds, wherever those end up setting up. Across the east today and across the south, we're looking a little bit wider here. We're starting off relatively quiet, but that changes as we head into this afternoon. We get a lot of instability moving through as our front drops to the south, so some stronger storms possible from Vermont, New Hampshire, all the way back southwest into Pennsylvania, New York, Virginia. These could be some big rainmakers, again, with some really warm air extending all the way up to 14,000 feet. That just tells you there's just so much moisture in the atmosphere. So some really efficient rainmakers possible with these. And look at this. We're still looking at this swirl, this disturbance as it moves across Florida. Yeah, if you're along the Gulf Coast, I think you watch this. Not necessarily maybe the west coast of Florida, although there could be some impacts. Something might develop here. Again, about a 30% chance from the National Hurricane Center. The problem, I think, even if you don't see any kind of tropical development, will be the heavy rain risk wherever this piece of energy ends up going. And then we push this out in time. Now we're moving into Wednesday. more rain moving back into Ohio, and there comes that system we talked about heading toward Wisconsin. Here's a look at your temperatures today across the east. Oh, let's move this way. Sorry, we're live. And by the way, if you're just joining the live channel, you can back it up, take it from the beginning anytime. And thanks for all of those of you who have subscribed. A lot of you, about almost 50% of the folks watching these videos aren't subscribers. So if you want to come back and check out some weather information, I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel. There's your temperatures today. The only relief, check this out, maybe some sea breeze showers today across the southeast. Other than that, hot. A little cooler across the northeast, and of course that's very typical. Across the west, a little more shower activity across the far southwest as the monsoon kicks in. Maybe even a few stronger storms across Arizona, and then more storms heading into Wednesday. A little bit further north, maybe up toward Flagstaff. I don't know if it's going to rain in Winslow. It's so dry in this part of Arizona. Who knows? But the chances there, you can see it sporadically showing up here into the afternoon, even into Thursday and then into Friday. That moisture tries to work a little bit further to the north. So maybe some relief to this heat where it's just baking today. Triple digits across the Great Basin, the Central Valley. Up toward Boise, still getting very close to 100. A little bit cooler maybe than yesterday. Some chillier air trying to work in, at least across the northern Rockies. That's going to cool us down across parts of eastern Oregon, eastern Washington, into Montana, also into Wyoming. Otherwise, south of this line, it stays hot. Okay, that's all I got for now. See you next time.